Have you ever been truly lost, not in the city, not on a highway, but in the kind of silence only the Scottish Highlands can hold, where the only light is not your own? Tonight on Whispers in the Shadows, we follow the shepherd's lantern, a ghostly glow that never leads where you expect. If you're drawn to Scottish folklore and tales of the uncanny, stay with us. Just don't stray too far from the path. They say the Highlands are empty, that if you walk far enough into the heather and mist, you'll find silence so complete it presses on your chest. I went looking for that silence, and what I found instead was a light that never led anywhere. It started with the map, or rather, the absence of it. I'd planned my route carefully, a 6-day solo hike across the Cairngorms, avoiding the tourist trails, sticking to old stalker paths and forgotten drover roads. I wasn't looking for beauty, but there's no shortage of that. I was looking for absence. Absence of noise, of people, of memory. My daughter, Lily, died the previous winter. She was 12, a stupid accident. Not even a dramatic one, just a frozen pond and a friend's dog off its leash. She'd gone after it, laughing. By the time I pulled her out, the laughter had stopped. Grief doesn't hit all at once. Sometimes it sits in your lungs for months, like fog that won't lift. My ex-wife wanted to talk it out. Friends sent books and warm meals. I nodded, thanked them. Then in April, I packed my rucksack and left without telling anyone where. The first 3 days went exactly as planned. Crisp winds, damp boots, the occasional raven spiraling overhead. I barely spoke, except to myself or the occasional sheep I passed. The land is ancient up there. It makes you feel like a trespasser. I like that. It matched what I felt inside. It was the 4th day that I noticed the path changing. It started as a stone wall, low and half-collapsed, that shouldn't have been there. My OS map didn't mark it, and neither did my GPS. Just beyond it was a series of cairns, each one stacked with precise flat stones, as if someone had built them recently. And in the middle of them stood a sign, rust-gnawed and leaning, carved in Gaelic. I couldn't read it, not then. But I recognized the first word, na, a warning. Or a negation, something meant to push me back. I laughed it off. Took a photo with my phone, which had already dipped to 12% battery. I was about to turn back to my planned route when I noticed something strange. There was a trail, faint, but real, woven through the heather like a sheep path, and at the far end, high on a distant ridge, a small light. It was the color of fire. Orange, steady, flickering slightly in the wind. Someone's lantern, I thought. A bothy, perhaps. A shepherd's station. It moved slowly, not up or down, but across, as if someone was walking with it. And then I heard it. A voice, carried on the wind, light, male, maybe 60 or 70 years old. He was humming something, low and rhythmic, like an old Gaelic lullaby. I felt my skin prickle, not with fear, but recognition. The tune was one Lily used to sing in her sleep. I'd never figured out where she heard it. That was all the convincing I needed. I followed the light. The path was uneven and narrow, winding between rock outcroppings and moss-choked streams. More than once I lost the trail and had to backtrack, but the lantern remained always ahead, always just within reach, not brighter, not closer, just present. By the time night fell fully, the wind had picked up, and I knew I wouldn't make camp in time. So I chose a dry spot beneath a jutting rock face, threw up my bivvy, and ate what was left of my oat cakes and tinned herring. I didn't sleep well. Something kept rustling nearby. I'd shine my torch into the dark and find nothing. No animals. No wind. Only the distant ring of sheep bells, though I'd passed no flocks that day. And then, just before dawn, I woke to see the light again. Brighter this time, closer, swinging gently like someone holding it and waiting. I sat up, called out, "Hello." No reply, only the wind and the bleeding. I zipped up my bivvy, pulled on my boots, and, against better judgment, followed. The trail had changed again. What had been rough, scattered stone now felt almost paved. At one point, I realized I was walking between rows of identical stones, waist high, like grave markers without names. The mist closed in before I saw where the trail ended, or maybe it never ended at all. I made camp again that evening without ever finding the source of the lantern. The wind had shifted, coming in cold from the west. My compass needle twitched every time I checked it. I marked a tree with my knife, a simple X, just in case I passed it again. The light returned at night, and this time it wasn't alone. I saw figures, at first just one, then two, three, distant shapes standing among the hills. Not moving, not watching me, exactly, but facing me. And when I turned off my torch to test the darkness, I realized the lantern's glow wasn't casting shadows, it was absorbing them. I slept badly again. Dreamed of sheep moving in endless circles. Their eyes were pale. Human, and someone or something kept counting them, over and over. 1, 2, 3, 4. I woke up with dirt in my mouth. My sleeping bag was soaked. The marked tree was gone. Or maybe I had never left that spot at all. By the fifth morning, I wasn't sure what day it was anymore. My watch had stopped during the night, hands frozen at 3:17, and the sun, though present, felt wrong, paler, stretched thin across the sky like skin over bone. I told myself I was just tired, sleep-deprived, hungry. The mind plays tricks out here, even the old guides say so, but a part of me, a quieter part, knew something had shifted. This wasn't the highlands I entered. This was something beneath them. The lantern didn't appear during the day, but I could feel it, somewhere ahead, a warmth just out of reach, like standing near a fire with your back turned. I kept walking anyway. The land itself felt different. No birds. No wind. Just thick, thigh-high heather and black mud that sucked at my boots like wet mouths. And then, just before midday, I heard the voice again. Low, melodic, humming the same lullaby. But this time, I could make out words. Not English. Not even Gaelic, at least not any version I'd heard. Just soft syllables, rising and falling like breath through a reed. I turned and shouted, "Where are you?" The voice stopped. Then, from behind me, where no one had been, a reply.
"Where are you, laddie?"
I spun, hard hammering. No one. Only a line of stones that hadn't been there before, for tall ones, standing upright like ancient gateposts. I passed between them, not by choice, not really. My legs moved like they belonged to someone else. Beyond them, the world seemed softer, quieter. There was grass again, impossibly green, and the sound of bells in the distance. Not church bells, sheep bells. I smelled smoke, too, peat, and wet wool. That's when I saw the bothy small, stone, slanted roof covered in lichen. A lantern hung outside the door, swinging slightly, though no wind touched it. It glowed with that same orange light, the one I'd followed for 2 nights, and inside, I saw someone moving. He was tall, wearing a long, threadbare coat and a shepherd's cap pulled low over his brow. He didn't look up at me, just poked at the fire with an iron rod. I stood in the doorway, unsure if I was dreaming. "Are you the one with the lantern?" I asked. The man nodded, still didn't look at me. "Why have you been leading me here?" He stirred the fire again. It popped, and something inside sizzled, not wood, not coal.
Folk go missing in these hills all the time.
He said finally.
Most don't want to be found.
I wasn't lost, I said, a lie, but one I needed to believe. He looked up then. His eyes were the color of ash, gray, but not dull, alive, like coals still burning at the edge of flame.
You just didn't know it yet.
Behind him, I saw hooks on the wall, dozens of them, each one holding a bell, old, rusted, slightly different shapes, each one marked with initials I couldn't read. "Is this your place?" I asked. He stood slowly, and for the first time I noticed something was wrong with his legs. Not bent, exactly, just angled oddly, like a goat's.
I keep it, that's all.
He took down one of the bells and held it to the fire. It began to ring, not from motion, but from heat, a slow, mournful chime. I took a step back. He turned to me, expression unreadable.
You're not the first to follow the lantern, won't be the last. But not all make it this far.
I didn't ask to come here. He smiled. There were too many teeth, flat, white, like pebbles.
You followed? That's enough.
Suddenly the bothy was cold, colder than outside. The fire gave off no heat now, only light, and it threw no shadow. I turned to leave. The door was gone. Only wall, stone solid. I panicked, spun back toward the man, but he was gone. Only the bells remained, and the lantern, which now hung in midair, flickering softly. That was when the bleeding started. Not outside, but from beneath the floorboards, low, constant, growing louder by the second. Then came the footsteps. Heavy measured, dozens of them. And behind it all, a voice, still humming, still counting. 1, 2, 3, 4. It was the sound of someone gathering, calling in a flock. I don't remember how I got out, just that I woke the next morning under open sky. No bothy, no lantern. Only hoof prints in the heather. Dozens of them, all circling the place where I lay. I didn't try to find my route again. I just walked. Didn't matter which way. I just needed to keep going. But every time I crested a ridge, I saw it again, that orange light, flickering. waiting. And every night, I heard the bells. I've lost count of the nights. I mark them now by the visits, not by sleep. That's become a luxury, not by meals. My supplies ran out long ago. Each sunset bleeds into a darkness that feels watched, and with that darkness, the lantern always returns, hovering somewhere just beyond the next hill. Sometimes I walk toward it. Sometimes I run in the other direction. It makes no difference. It still appears. And now, I'm no longer alone. I first noticed them 2 nights ago, silhouettes among the heather, not close, not threatening, just present. They crouched low, like sheep bedding down for the night. I thought they were sheep at first, but their outlines were all wrong, too tall, too still. And when I called out, they didn't move, didn't scatter, they just stared. I know that sounds mad, but I felt their eyes. They weren't just watching, they were waiting. That night, the shepherd came again, not in the bothy, not in a dream. He stood at the crest of the hill above me, lantern in one hand, a crooked staff in the other. His coat hung heavy with dew. His face was half-shadowed beneath his cap. He didn't speak, just rang the bell. Not from his hand, but from somewhere inside his coat. A chime, hollow and sad, as if remembering something long buried. And when it rang, the crouching shapes rose. There were at least a dozen of them, pale, hunched, wearing torn clothing that might have once been modern. Their faces, no, I won't call them faces. They were suggestions of faces, like something painted over too many times, the original detail lost, empty where eyes should be, silent mouths half-parted as if trying to remember how to speak. They gathered around the shepherd, obedient as livestock. He turned, lantern raised, and led them into the mist. Not one of them looked back. I stayed still for a long time after they vanished, afraid that moving might draw attention, afraid that I might be invited to follow. And deep down, more than anything, afraid that next time, I might say yes. I don't remember falling asleep, but I woke at dawn with something cold in my hand. A bell, small, iron, no markings. I threw it into the ravine beside me, heard it bounce once, then silence, as if the earth itself had swallowed the sound. That day, I walked for hours, refused to stop, ignored the shapes in the periphery, plugged my ears when the humming began. I started repeating names to myself, real names, family, friends, my dog's name from when I was a kid. Anything to hold on, anything to anchor me. But even those are beginning to fade, not all at once, just edges, like words written on wet stone. And I've started noticing echoes, not sounds, memories, but ones that aren't mine. Yesterday, I remembered holding a crook, walking behind Real sheep, calling to a collie in a language I've never spoken. I remembered the weight of wet wool across my shoulders, the smell of rot beneath the fleece, the feel of hooves in my chest. I remembered dying. But it wasn't me. Last night, I saw a woman among the flock. She had long red hair and wore a windbreaker tied around her waist. I recognized her from a missing poster I'd passed at the Inverness train station. She vanished 3 years ago. She walked stiffly, her head turned slowly to face me, and for a brief second, I swear, she mouthed the word run. Then the bell rang, and she turned away, joined the others. This place, it's not just a trap, it's a hurting ground. He doesn't hunt, he waits. He lets you get tired, disoriented, lets you walk until you forget why you ever walked at all. And then he comes with his light, offering direction, offering relief. But it's not a guide, it's a leash. I don't know how long I can hold out. I still have a compass, but it spins wildly. No signal on my phone. No planes overhead. No bird song. Just the wind through grass, the chiming of distant bells, and that humming. Always that damn humming. I think it's time to make a decision, not between directions. I've tried them all, not between day or night. They blend together now. No, the only real choice left is whether I follow or I hide. But what if hiding only delays the inevitable? What if I'm already his? What if the bell in the ravine has already rung my name, and I just didn't hear it? I've found a cave, small, dry, barely visible unless you're looking for it. The entrance is choked with gorse and nettle, a good hiding place. I'm going to stay here tonight, stay awake, not move, not listen, not follow. Let him ring his bell, let his flock gather, let the lantern burn. I will not answer. Not tonight. I lasted 2 nights. 2 nights in the cave, 2 nights of silence, stillness, pretending I no longer existed. It almost worked. The lantern didn't appear the first night. Neither did the flock. I told myself they'd moved on. I was forgotten, saved. But that's the cruelty of hope, isn't it? It gives you just enough breath to scream when it's taken away. On the 3rd night, the wind changed. It blew from the north, dry and bitter, bringing with it the sound of chanting. Not words, just low, rhythmic tones like cattle moaning in chorus, and beneath that, the faint chime of iron. The flock had found me. I buried myself deeper in the cave, wrapped my hands over my ears, pressed my face into the damp stone, and whispered names, every name I could remember. But even those were crumbling. First names, then faces. Soon, all I could remember was the hill. That damned hill, the place where I first saw the lantern, where I followed. I woke to light, warm, golden, gentle, filtering through the entrance of the cave, and for a moment, I believed it was dawn. I crawled toward it, hands scraped raw, mouth dry, but as I got closer, I saw the truth. It wasn't the sun, it was the lantern, sitting on a stone, burning without smoke, waiting for me. And beside it stood the shepherd. This time, he didn't ring the bell. He didn't need to. I stepped out of the cave like a lamb from a fold. He turned and walked, and I followed. The hills no longer resisted me. The fog parted from my feet. I no longer felt hunger or cold or doubt. There were others walking with me now. The woman in the windbreaker, a boy in a school uniform, an old man missing half his jaw. All of us, walking towards something. And as we crested the ridge, I saw it. A fold, that's the only word that fits. A sunken glen, surrounded by crags and heather. Within it, hundreds, maybe thousands of pale, unmoving figures. They stood in rows, perfect lines, like livestock waiting for slaughter or worshippers waiting for sermon. The shepherd descended first. His flock parted for him. He took his place atop a black stone at the center, raised his lantern high. And then he spoke. Not aloud. No sound passed his lips, but I heard him. We all did. His voice came from the earth, from the bones beneath the moss, from the wind and the grass. It filled us with memory, not our own, but his. Memories of long winters, of wolves in the dark, of roads forgotten by time, of tending sheep not for slaughter, but for silence. He was once a real man, a shepherd who guided travelers through these hills, but a storm took his flock. A landslide buried the path. He was blamed, banished, and died alone, lantern in hand, calling for sheep that never returned. And so now he finds new ones. He does not kill, he does not chase, he waits, and when the lost find him, he takes them in. Not out of cruelty, not vengeance, but because he no longer knows the difference between man and beast. I tried to run. I tried to scream, but my legs wouldn't move. My throat was filled with wool. And then he stepped toward me, lantern raised, eyes like coals under frost. He reached into his coat, pulled out a bell. Not rusted, not cracked. This one was new. It bore my name. He placed it around my neck, and I wept, not from fear, but because it fit. I don't remember what happened next, or maybe I remember too well and can no longer separate it from dream. All I know is this: I stand in the fold now. I do not hunger. I do not sleep. I do not speak. But I see every lost soul that enters these hills, every mapless wanderer, every hiker who thinks they can master this land. And when they lose their way, when they cry out for help, when they beg for a sign, I help them light the lantern. So, if you saw a flickering light in the distance, would you follow it, even if it led deeper into the mist? Let us know in the comments. And if the shepherd's lantern haunted you like it did me, be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more tales from the forgotten places. Until next time, stay curious, stay wary, and beware the call of the light.